The day Natalie Harper walked back into my life, the past I had buried for 15 years suddenly stood in front of me. Tired, trembling, and asking for help I never imagined she would need. It was a cold afternoon in late October in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the kind of afternoon where the sky hangs low and gray, and the wind feels like it carries memories with it. I was sitting in the small auto repair shop I had owned for almost a decade, flipping through invoices and thinking about closing early, when the bell above the door rang. I looked up casually at first. Then my heart stopped. Standing in the doorway was a woman with chestnut hair that had grown longer, softer eyes that looked heavier with life, and a familiar presence that made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't felt since I was 17. It was Natalie, the girl I had loved in high school, the girl who had broken my heart, the girl I never expected to see again. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us like a fragile bridge made of memories. My mind flashed back to football games under bright stadium lights, late-night walks after school dances, and the day she left town without saying goodbye. And now here she was. But something was wrong. Natalie didn't look like the confident girl I remembered. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her eyes tired, and there was a quiet sadness in her face that made it impossible to ignore. She looked like someone who had been fighting a long, lonely battle. Before we continue this story, take a moment to support the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that people sometimes find their way back into our lives for a reason, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Because sometimes, the most unexpected stories are the ones that change us the most. Natalie stepped forward slowly, like someone unsure whether they were welcome. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, and suddenly I felt 17 again, awkward, nervous, and unsure what to say to the girl who had once meant everything to me. 15 years had passed since we last saw each other. 15 years since she had disappeared from my life. Back in high school, Natalie had been the kind of person everyone noticed when she entered a room. She wasn't just beautiful, she had this quiet kindness that made people feel safe around her. Teachers loved her, friends depended on her. And somehow, despite being the shy kid who spent most of his time fixing engines in his father's garage, she had chosen me. Those 2 years we dated were the happiest years of my life. We had dreams back then. Big ones. We talked about leaving Iowa someday, maybe moving somewhere warm like California or Florida. We imagined building a life together, finding jobs, raising a family. But life rarely follows the plans we make when we're young. During our senior year, Natalie's family suddenly moved to Chicago after her father got a job offer. The night before she left, we promised to stay in touch. We promised we would find our way back to each other. For a few months we tried. Phone calls, letters, late-night conversations about how much we missed each other. But distance has a quiet way of breaking things apart. Eventually, the calls became less frequent. The letters stopped. And one day, Natalie simply vanished from my life like a chapter that had been torn out of a book. I never knew what happened to her. I never knew why she stopped trying. All I knew was that it hurt. And slowly, over the years, I learned to live without the answers. Now she stood in front of me again. And the past was suddenly very real. Natalie looked around the shop for a moment, as if gathering the courage to speak. Her eyes paused on the old photographs hanging on the wall. Pictures of my father, the man who had taught me how to fix engines and how to survive heartbreak without letting it turn you bitter. Then her gaze returned to me. There was something in her eyes that made my chest tighten. It wasn't nostalgia, it was desperation. Natalie took a slow breath before finally explaining why she had come. Her marriage was falling apart. For the past 10 years, she had been married to a man named Brian, a successful real estate developer who seemed perfect when they first met. He was charming, ambitious, and financially stable. But behind closed doors, things were very different. Brian was controlling, cold. And slowly, over the years, he had turned Natalie's life into something that felt more like a cage than a marriage. At first, it was small things, criticizing her choices, deciding who she could spend time with, controlling the finances. Then the arguments started. Then the threats. Eventually, Natalie realized she was living in a relationship where love had been replaced by fear. She tried to leave once before. Brian had convinced her to stay. But now she was finally ready to end it. There was just one problem. Brian had money, power, connections, and he was determined to make the divorce as painful as possible. Natalie explained that she needed someone she could trust, someone who would help her stand strong through the legal battle and emotional chaos that was coming. And somehow, after all these years, the person she thought of was me, the boy she had once loved, the man she had once left behind. Listening to her story felt like standing in the middle of two different timelines. Part of me remembered the girl who used to sit next to me at football games, laughing under the stadium lights. Another part of me saw the woman in front of me now, tired, vulnerable, but finally ready to fight for her freedom. I couldn't pretend the past didn't matter. For years I had wondered why she disappeared, why she stopped calling, why she never tried to find me again. But as Natalie stood there, explaining the mistakes she had made and the life she wished she could undo, I realized something important. Life had been just as hard for her as it had been for me, maybe harder. Natalie admitted that after moving to Chicago, everything in her life changed quickly. New school, new friends, family pressure, and the overwhelming distance between us had slowly pushed her toward a different path. By the time she realized she had lost something truly special, it was already too late. Or at least, she thought it was. Standing there in my repair shop, she wasn't asking for love. She wasn't asking to go back to the past. She was simply asking for help, someone to believe in her while she fought for her future. And in that moment, I realized something that surprised even me. The pain I had carried for 15 years wasn't anger anymore. It was just a memory. So I told her I would help, not because of what we once had, but because the girl who used to believe in me all those years ago deserved someone who believed in her now. Over the next several months, Natalie's life became a storm. Lawyers, court hearings, endless paperwork. Brian fought the divorce with everything he had. He tried to intimidate her, manipulate the process, and drag out every detail in hopes that she would eventually give up. But Natalie didn't quit. Every time things felt overwhelming, she came by the shop and sat in the old chair next to my desk. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we just sat in silence. But slowly, something began to change. Natalie started to smile again. The tired look in her eyes slowly faded. And the woman I had once loved, the strong, kind, hopeful Natalie, began to return. One evening after a particularly exhausting court hearing, Natalie stayed late at the shop while I finished working on an engine. The garage was quiet except for the hum of the lights and the soft tapping of tools. When I finally looked up, she was watching me with a small, thoughtful smile. It was the same smile she used to give me in high school, the kind that made the whole world feel lighter. In that moment, I realized something unexpected. Sometimes life doesn't give us the story we planned. Sometimes people leave. Sometimes they come back broken. But every once in a while, life gives us a second chance to write a different ending. Before we reach the ending of this story, I have a special request for you. Please comment the word second chance if you believe people deserve another opportunity to rebuild their lives after making mistakes. Your comment helps the channel grow and allows more people to hear stories about hope and redemption. A year after Natalie first walked into my shop, the divorce was finally over. Brian lost. Natalie was free. The day she received the final court decision, she came back to the shop again, just like she had done so many times before. But this time, she looked different, lighter, stronger. For the first time in years, Natalie looked like someone who could breathe again. We sat outside on the small wooden bench next to the garage, watching the sunset turn the Iowa sky shades of orange and gold. And as the evening grew quiet, Natalie said something that stayed with me. She said life had taken her far away from the boy she once loved. But somehow, when she needed help the most, that same boy had become the man who helped her find herself again. She didn't ask for anything else. She didn't rush the future. But for the first time in 15 years, the space between us felt open again. And sometimes, that's all a second chance needs. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. Because somewhere out there, someone might still be waiting for the courage to walk back into a life they once lost. And sometimes, the person they're hoping to find is still waiting for them too.